Joining me, Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy. Senator, that ad is difficult. You're working on legislation with a couple of your colleagues. You've been in touch with the White House. What's happening?
It's the first time I've seen that ad. Every single parent that sends their kids off to school, knowing that kids today are often fearing for their lives, know that something's got to change. Let me try to compose myself after watching that, Katie. We have a chance to do something here because of this movement, because of all these parents and these kids all around the country who have stood up and said enough is enough. We finally have the White House starting to slowly move towards us on the issue of at least expanding background checks to cover more gun sales in this country. We're not close to there yet, but as has been reported, the White House is circulating some new language today, and the fact that we're still talking is good news. I don't know whether we'll get there, but our movement to try to command this country to action is stronger than ever before, and we are still at the table trying to figure out if we can find some common ground.
Mitch McConnell has said that he's waiting for the president's word on what sort of legislation he would sign. The president seems to be indicating he's waiting for Congress. Who's leading who here?
Yeah, hard to figure it out. It's a very odd leadership style that this president has. He sent his representatives up to Capitol Hill yesterday and today to try to sell a proposal that the president has not agreed to. Mitch McConnell says he won't vote on anything until he knows what the president agrees to, and so it doesn't seem like we're getting to a conclusion anytime soon. Listen, Mitch McConnell, he has a different copy of the Constitution than I have. The one that I have says that no party has to wait for the permission of the president before they act, especially when it comes to advancing the public safety of the country. So Republicans could decide they want something that expands background checks to commercial sales in this country. And if they put it on the president's desk, I think the president would sign it. So right now, it's not clear in the Republican Party who's in charge.
Could you support legislation that does not include background checks or does not include red flag laws?
So what I think we should do is have a vote on universal background checks on the floor of the Senate. So if ultimately the White House walks away from background checks language and puts up something that, just expands incentives for red flags, let's put that up on the Senate floor, and then let's have a vote on background checks. And let's see if Republicans are really willing to vote against something that 90% of their constituents support. So I ultimately think we can bring this debate to the floor, and let's actually let the Senate do its work. Let's actually see if there are 60 votes for background checks. There might be.
The president called Beto O'Rourke dumb today for saying that there should be mandatory gun buybacks. What do you think of that proposal from the presidential candidate?
I have not taken a look at Beto's proposal. What I know is that, we're not talking about that right now with the White House. We're trying to get to an answer on background checks, on expanding background checks to more commercial sales. I'm sure that's going to be a subject that lots of Republicans will want to talk about, but it has nothing to do with the discussions we're having right now with the White House and my other colleagues.
Senator, you're also on the Foreign Relations Committee. The other day, you had a tweet thread indicating why you believed Houthi rebels were behind the attack on Saudi Arabia. It's coming out that U.S. intelligence believes that the attack may have originated from Iran. The president believes it's Iran. The Saudis are giving out evidence that they say that this attack is from Iran. What is your assessment? Have you had an intelligence briefing on this?
So I've seen some intelligence on it. I have not had a briefing on it. I haven't had the chance to ask anybody questions. What I've seen does suggest that Iran was involved in this attack. And even if it did, some or part of it come from Houthi territory, Iran would have been involved in that attack as well, because Iran and the Houthis do have an increasingly close relationship. The point of my thread on social media is that whether or not Iran had something to do with this attack, the attack was against Saudi Arabia. And we all have to take ownership for the fact that the escalating tensions in the region between Saudi Arabia and Iran are happening in part because of U.S. involvement in the Saudi participation in the war in Yemen, which could have been brought to a close years ago. So I just think we have to ask some questions about why we should get involved in this.
So that is my question. Should we be getting involved in this?
Well, listen, we should not be the guarantor of Saudi oil refineries. Why have we been selling all of these weapons to the Saudis over the last 10 years if the Saudis can't defend themselves? I can't imagine anything worse than for the United States to engage in a military strike against Iran because Iran struck Saudi Arabia. That would set off a regional war that would make all of us worse off. So we should not be coming to the defense of countries that we don't have treaty alliances with, especially if that action that we take ends up causing more problems than it solves.
Senator Chris Murphy. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Katie.
And next up.